So whoever is supposed to be in charge of this riderless horse would have to make sure that this horse behaves and he would do it.
Obeys instructions, eh?
Yeah.
There will be a handler for it.
Definitely, yes. Yeah.
And it's symbolic of his love for riding. And then it's also symbolic of the fact that I'll say it's a symbolic horse.
Yes.
That's why it's riderless.
Yes, because the rider is passed.
The rider has passed. So the riding boots will be turned to face backwards to depict or show that the rider is no more. Yes. So the riding helmet, the riding jacket, the riding crop, all the riding accoutrements will also be placed in the saddle as the horse travels along. So viewers, as we have mentioned now, when you see the riderless horse in the procession tomorrow, this is what it means.
So now we're seeing the next to come in would be the spouses of former presidents. Yes, spouses of former presidents. This is a chief of staff. This is a chief of staff. Yeah, so that's the chief of staff, Honorable Frema Osayofara. She is now she is next to pay her respect. After the chief of staff, that will now move into the spouses of.
That's the chief of staff doing her for fighting past the day. After the chief of staff, then we should be expecting to see the secretary to the president, and that would be Nana Asante Bediet.
Accra International Conference Center, where His Excellency J.J. Rawlings is lying in state. We saw not too long ago the Vice President and his wife. We saw the former President John Dramani Mahama and his wife. We also saw the Chief of Staff, Honorable Freeman Opare. We saw Ibrahim Mahama, the brother of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, and other personalities. We also saw former President John Ajekum Kufuor, filing past and paying their last respects. And so today appears to be a packed day. We have two very important ceremonies. We also have the 2020 presidential election petition currently ongoing at the Supreme Court. And so that event is live on Ghana television, GTV, whilst we bring you the final funeral rites of the late former President Jerry John Rawlings on GBC News. And so the 2020 presidential election petition hearing is going to be live on GTV, and this program that you're watching is going to be live on GBC News. Interestingly, the party that the former President J.J. Rawlings founded is in court. They say that there were some irregularities relative to the 2020 presidential elections, and so the courts must hear that case and call for a rerun. We reliably informed that the NDC, for that matter, John Dramani Mahama, His Excellency, has filed a motion to stay proceedings until the Supreme Court
Jean Mensah, chairperson, is representing the first respondent. Peter.
That you've been sharing. The hashtag, don't forget, is RIPJJ. If you want us to read your message on Facebook, on WhatsApp, you want to prefix that with RIPJJ. Let's go back to the AICC.
As the secretary to the president, Nana Asante Diputu.
And so this is still our coverage of the 4-day state funeral of His Excellency J.J. Rawlings, who is lying in state at the Accra International Conference Center. As I told you earlier on, there is another event at the Supreme Court, which is the hearing of the 2020 presidential election petition. Our men, Abduhai Mumen and Edward Nyako, are going to be our anchors on the ground, bringing you some perspectives from the various parties that are involved in that particular case. You want to watch that one. In between time, you can switch and watch this particular event as well. But we are live here in the studio bringing you the 4-day state funeral event of His Excellency J.J. Rawlings. We've seen that you've been sending us messages on WhatsApp, on Facebook, and on Twitter. Quickly, my colleague Winifred will read some of those messages as we have received them. The hashtag is still RIP J.J. Winifred.
Yes, Morris, tributes continue to pour in. The whole nation is mourning a great man, but we are also celebrating the legacies of the same great man. And so the messages continue to pour in. Walanyo Inakwetia says NDC's petition is just having one agenda to frustrate the EC. And so this is about the court hearing you spoke about, and we'll be going there. The NDC delay tactics tell us something, paint a certain picture. Are still going on there. Hashtag RIPJJ. Indeed, good name is better than riches. A just soul has fallen. I still wonder why everything should be in Accra in view of the burial of JJ. He is from the Anglo land, moreover a king. His body must be buried in the Anglo land to motivate the land and serve as a tourist attraction for the Anglo. And this, you didn't send us your name, would also want to know where you are reaching us from, and this is a comment from someone who didn't mention his name. We also have RIP Papa J. We also have, we have really lost a legend. I didn't come to meet him doing the great things, but from what I've heard, I know Ghana has really lost a great person. We have Farewell JJ also coming in through. Leviticus powers. COVID is real. Please let us follow strictly all protocols to save lives. And then he also said Ghana must take COVID-19 precautionary protocols also serious. Good morning, sir. Please, the man in front of you now made my day. All those celebrating JJ now are all hypocrites. If they are related to the 3 Supreme Court judges, they were killed. This is also another one from Pong. The Almighty God we serve is merciful God. NDC thoughts Nanado will win. And all these are, the people watching us are also sharing their thoughts about the court proceedings. And so we will be having most of them like that.
It's going to be a blend.
It's going to be, yes.
So, and that event, as I said, is live only on Ghana television.
Sure.
And this one is going to be live on GBC News.
This is David from Accra. I'm writing to know how much it will cost. This is another one. Let's go through. Maurice, the messages are just... Yes.
Should be limited to the discussions we have.
Yes, we will implore them to do that. Yeah. I think he was a chosen one because surviving the caliber of deadly soldiers who wanted him out, to me, was a miracle. Only a chosen person can pull through all the assassination attempts. And this is what another viewer has also sent us. He says, Papa J, may your soul rest in peace. Indeed, you are a legend. Ghana loves you. And that is also coming from another person. He says, meet again by his counsels guide you, uphold you, with his sheep secure you, enfold you. God be with you till we meet again. And that is also another one coming through. As we mourn with the family and all Africans as a whole, one thing that still lingers in me is that when I was a little boy, a school-going child, the horror I experienced in Tamale in the revolutionary years, something in the early 80s, there was this man called Bob Marley, the market before the STT station, and it was Mr. Rawlings who came in to help us. I think that is also another memory somebody is also trying to share with us. This one says, my condolences to the family. May his soul rest in perfect peace. Papa J, women are proud of you for the implementation of the PNDC Law 111. Right. Rest in perfect peace.
Even if you don't remember him for anything, this particular law, which says that if a man dies or if someone dies and didn't make a will,
Sure.
the PNDC law 111 stipulates clearly how his properties,
Must be shared.
must be shared,
Sure.
and that restores some orderliness and peace, in the family. So if you don't remember him for anything, the PNDC law 111 still works, and it works for everybody. Yeah.
Please, I'm Michael from Bekwai. Are you going to telecast the election petition? Yes, we are going to do that.
And that's live on
That
Ghana
is live
television.
on Ghana television. This one says, R.I.P. Papa J. I am Clement from Oda. May Papa J so rest in peace. Greetings to the President of Ghana and Honorable Kojo. We also have, please, I'm Michael from Bekwai, and he's also sending his condolences. And so, Maurice, the messages continues to pour in, the tributes continue to pour in. And as and when they come
I just
in...
received a message from a viewer, and he says that the police officers have stopped checking the nose mask at the lorry stations and the passengers. COVID-19 is real.
It is indeed real. The cases we are having now...
Many didn't believe, but I've heard of people who are a little bit close to me who have died of COVID-19, and so this particular virus is real. And so the police must go down to the lorry stations, must go down to the terminals to ensure that passengers are wearing their nose masks,
they adhere to the
drivers are wearing their nose masks, and then everybody around the area. The GPRTU has said that, if you're a driver and you didn't enforce the safety protocols, they were going to suspend you. But I'm thinking that they are
suspend the driver.
They will suspend the driver, but they're very much limited. There are over 1,001 lorry stations. Hundreds and thousands of drivers. The GPRTU alone cannot enforce this particular directive. The lorry stations are hotspots when it comes to COVID-19.
It is time for us to take responsibility of our actions.
Sure.
Ideally, you do not need somebody to force you to protect your own self. And so this is the time for us to do so. The cases coming in, they are not encouraged, and so Ghanaians must be up to the task. Let us mask up, let us wash our hands, let us ensure that we are living clean to live well, because it's not encouraging at all.
Also, especially because tomorrow is going to be the final day of mourning at Independence Square,
Day 4,
which is going to see the numbers more than what we have seen at the conference center. We want to be very careful at this particular point, because we're going to have personalities from every sphere of life. We're going to have foreign dignitaries, and all that. So COVID-19 is real.
It is.
We want to protect ourselves.
It is. It
at this
is.
Point.
The messages are still pouring. Papa, you have done a great work to Ghana. R.I.P. And that one says, we really miss you, Papa J. Rest in peace. Another one says, may the soul of Papa J rest in peace. I want to know why flags are not flying at half-mast. And this is from Yao. This is what he also wants us to know. Hi, this is Arise. May his gentle soul rest in peace, Papa J. And so, Maurice, the messages all are about him, as expected.
All right.
Papa J, Jenny, well, I remember your visit to Salaga in the 90s during the conflict era. Right. Papa, Jenny, well, Tornado from Salaga. And so these are all the messages that we are having.
In your shot, E.T. Mensah, an experienced politician, and no doubt he worked with Rawlings.
He did.
He's been in the system for a very long time. At a point, he was a minister of youth and sports. He served in several capacities, and he has also gone there to pay his last respect. E.T. Mensah, we saw a while ago in your shot.
And these are the dignitaries that if you didn't know the man in person, you get to know him through the accounts of these people who really had something to do with him. So, Maurice, it's still rest in peace for people who are wishing the man you have all come to love well from here.
So, we still are the Accra International Conference Center. Those are live pictures. We we want to hand you over at this point to feed from the conference center. You're welcome back to the studios. We're still bringing you pictures from the Accra International Conference Center. As announced early on, there is another event at the Supreme Court. It is the 2020 presidential petition hearing at the Supreme Court, and our reporters on the ground tell us that the Supreme Court has gone on recess. That's because the petitioners, led by counsel Tony Letha, today were supposed to file their witnesses' statements. They couldn't do that today, and they are saying that there was a motion pending for a review of a ruling that the Supreme Court made on their request to ask the EC some 12 or 15 specific questions. The Supreme Court dismissed that request and made their ruling. The NDC requested for a review of that ruling. Later, after the court adjourned to today, the NDC filed another motion to stay proceedings until the Supreme Court has heard their case on a motion requesting for a review of that particular hearing. So, counsel Tony Letha was saying that because these two motions were pending, they didn't come to court today with their petitioner statement. Don't forget that the NDC has said that they have some 5 witnesses who would be their witnesses in this particular case, the 2020 presidential election petition hearing at the Supreme Court. And so as we speak, the court has gone on recess. They would decide what will be the next way forward. When they return, we'll bring you pictures of that particular event. That is exclusive and live on Ghana Television. So at this point, we're going to get Ghana Television, GTV, join the feed from the Accra International Conference Center, where His Excellency J.J. Rawlings is lying in state. When the court gives a signal that they are ready to make their ruling on today's issues, then we'll go back to the Supreme Court, and then GTV will bring you pictures from the Supreme Court. Our men on the ground, Abdul Hai Momen and my senior colleague Edward Nyako, would be speaking to the parties involved in this particular matter and bring you up to speed with what's happening at the Supreme Court. You want to stay with us. So we'll go back to the Accra International Conference Center, where we see more dignitaries, personalities paying their last respects to His Excellency J.J. Rawlings. We see in your pictures not too long ago Do Ajaho, who was a former Speaker of Parliament, paying his last respect. So it got into that point where former Speakers of Parliament would come to pay their last respect. The lineup that we have. Former Speakers of Parliament will come there to pay their last respect to the late J.J. Rawlings. Those are pictures coming to you from the Accra International Conference Center. As you can see, I mean, there's so much, security because of the personality.
It should be expected.
I mean, that are coming there today.
It should be expected.
And also the safety protocols, COVID-19 safety protocols, adhered to strictly.
And it has been very strictly.
Very much so. Yes. Very much so. Yesterday when I was there, so when you get to the main entrance of the conference center, you do a security check, and then there's a booth where you are fumigated. I don't know whether that word is right. And then you climb up to the main frontage of the conference center. Lined up is, lots and lots of sanitizers. You can choose from to sanitize your hands. You walk in there quietly, and then you wave at the family. Then you do a turn, then you bow, and then you come out.
You walk out.
Sure. And you are not allowed to take any pictures. Yes. So I mean, those are pictures. I think that even today, the general public should be allowed. So we're seeing the numbers.
The numbers, yes.
Okay, so this is the NDC caucus in Parliament. I can see some
Honorable
very.
Hannah Tete there.
So it should be the NDC caucus in Parliament. They are getting themselves ready to pay their last respect. That's the Speaker.
Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Alban Bagbin.
Honorable Alban
Now, because
Bagbin.
of the mask, you are not able to readily identify.
Sure. But he's with his glasses.
That should be him. Yes, that should be him.
You get to see who he is.
That should be him.
Alban Sumana Bagbin, the current Speaker of Parliament. He will pay his last respects to J.J. Rawlings. There we see heads of security agencies. We also see the second deputy speaker, Joe Wise, the second deputy speaker in your shots there. And then those are parliamentary staffers.
Some of the clerks.
Sure. I mean, those work in Parliament, senior members of, the parliamentary workforce. So they're in a
the
shot.
Minority leader.
Well, at this point, they call him the leader of the NDC group.
The leader of the NDC group.
Leader of the NDC group.
Mr. Haruna Idrisu.
In Parliament.
Yes.
Mr. Haruna Idrisu, an experienced politician.
It's just going to be confusing. Eh?
Sure. He is being Minister of Communications at a point. He's being majority leader at a point.
A very
He's being
fine
minority
politician.
Leader at a point. He comes across as someone who welcomes views, from both political divides. So much respect for him, even from the MPP side. He leads the.
That should be Mr. Osei Chairman Sabunsu.
Okay.
Just walked past too.
Right.
A very solemn moment, Morris.
Sure. And I had the opportunity to file past yesterday.
You did?
I did, yes. I because I was
How
there.
was it like?
I mean, it was humbling that you had the opportunity because not everybody is going to have the opportunity.
It's true.
There are people who will be limited geographically, even though they would like to come and watch, they may not get the opportunity. So for me, it was humbling that I get to see this man finally.
And for people who haven't still come to terms with the fact that he's gone,
Sure.
you see him
Sure.
lying in state, and I mean, there's no two ways about it. You have no option than
Even at this point, some will feel it's not true until maybe tomorrow
when he's finally lowered,
and then maybe when the casket is covered. And then you know that the man is beginning a journey to eternity.
A journey of no return, if you can say that.
Sure. All right, so there we have it. Politicians from both the NDC and the MPP at the Accra International Conference Center.
And it is humbling how COVID-19 has been able to, change our very fabric of social life. Now we go to events such as this, which it was a norm for you to shake hands.
To even hug.
But now it has been reduced to a wave or a fist bump.
Sure. That's Honorable Doyo, Comfort Doyo Ganza. She's an MP for Ada. And you see in a shot, he's a new entrant in Parliament. Francis Sosu Xavier. He's an MP for Medina. He unseated Honorable Sadiq. No, Honorable Sadiq of the NDC.
Boniface, yes.
Sadiq
Boniface
of the NPP.
Sure.
And he goes to Parliament for the first time. He's a human rights lawyer. He's been fighting the cases for vulnerable people,
the less privileged
in society, pro bono. And I guess he'll continue to do that even now that he has become an MP there.
I remember that case he had with a man who had been in court.
Who had been in prison?
In prison for so long, and
yeah.
he was able to...
It was in remand, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. And then fought that case for him, and the guy was released. Yeah. He's done several of those
issues.
Of those cases, actually.
So yesterday, exactly 5 p.m., the doors were closed, or they were able to extend the time?
I think it was 5 p.m.
5 p.m.
Yeah, but I left before 5 p.m. anyway. But these are, this event is being ushered by the military and the national, the state protocol.
So there is strict compliance to time?
To time. So I'm thinking about 5 p.m. yesterday.
Youth groups were working on different directions that he knew was part of before June 4th broke out. And after that, what the film broke out. And like you said, it was a very interesting, down-to-earth person to work with.
But very interesting and down-to-earth person to work with.
Yeah.
Right. And if I ask you, what do you remember about him? Your fond memories of him. Tell me one important thing that you remember about him.
What I know about him is that he was down-to-earth person. When you dream about something in connection with the process, and you went there to you will catch his attention, and where he thought that there were other people in the group that you should touch base with, network with, he will recommend and will follow through.
So with me, also joining me in the studio is the Right Honorable Joe Ajaho, a former Speaker of Parliament. Honorable Joe Ajaho, you're welcome. And we're all looking at someone that we thought, we were thinking at the point in time, when his death was announced, people were surprised. And it got to a time that people were thinking that it is Rawlings never dies. But the story of Rawlings is dead came in. So what are you thinking about? Rawlings is gone. What are you thinking about?
Indeed, until I saw him lying in state, that was the position I took, that Rawlings never dies. I couldn't even believe it. Indeed, I was lost for words. And if you recall, I've never granted an interview until I came out and I spoke to the media for the first time since the unfortunate incident of November 12, 2020. But he was larger than life.
Yes.
He walked the talk. When he spoke about probity and accountability, it wasn't just a mere slogan. He actually lived it until the day before dead. You remember During the PNDC days, where his fight against corruption, his stand for probity and accountability was high. He never departed from those virtues, those principles, until he's passed on. I had the privilege, of getting closer to him, not when he was in office, but when he left office during the coup administration. But from a distance, he continued to motivate me. I just told a story of when I was Majority Chief Whip, and I went to do a program on those days, is it Talking Point? I think we still have it.
You still have it, yes.
It's normally on over the weekend, Sundays. I went there to do a program to defend the government position on certain issues. I was shocked the following day. Ambassador Victor Smith, who was then working in his office, brought a letter signed by the First Lady, the wife, Rawlings, that she and the husband appreciate my contributions, and that I should continue on that path. That's the level of motivation. That's the level of encouragement. It is not this time that we have this politics of pull you down. When you are shining, then people will meet, plan, and try and draw you down. He will motivate you, he will encourage you, he will support you. He will stand by you when he's convinced that what you are doing is right. And that letter, that from the first family at the time, I valued it up to today. That is continuing to inspire me to reach where I have reached in politics. And don't forget, as a young lawyer, I was posted to Brown-Harford region, to the Attorney General's Department for my national service in the early 80s. And I was there one morning when a letter came from Accra, signed by the PNDC coordinator for revenue commissioners, tribunals and investigations, appointing me as Assistant Special Public Prosecutor in charge of Brown-Harford region. Apparently, a week before I did a case at the tribunal, and I think there were reports all over, clearly showed the way I defended the person that appointment came, young as I was at that time. And so the whole Council Office of Special Public Prosecutor originated from the man, Jerry John Rawlings, in his bid to prosecute, to serve as deterrent for economic saboteurs, for people who continue to dish their hands into the scarce resources of this state for their personal gain. And I don't know the number of properties that the man had got at the time of his death. When he was living in Accra, I happened to visit there once. We went for a funeral at Transition, the funeral of the late Ebotewia, and we followed him to know where he was staying. And he was staying in a rented place. Later on, I was not. He was staying in a rented place. Apart from his step-flat place, that I know, very modest house. I don't know of any other. This should be the way forward.
Public should be the leader.
Yes, the public office should not be used to make money at the expense of the people. Clearly, I mean, if that path is not the correct path to go as a people and as a nation. And that is why he had no patience for people.
Because it was corrupt.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And many people did not agree so much with him.
That takes me to my next question. Honorable E.T. Mensah, you work with him. Yeah. And you know that in the part of the world, there are people who don't have anything to show for but for politics. Mm-hmm. Before politics, they were nobody. They have not done any hard work before. And so when they're going into politics, they're going into politics to make wealth. And you have a leader you are all following, and the man is against this. How comfortable were you? Were you not afraid of your future? That the future is going to be bleak, the future without money, the future without resources? Were you not afraid of it?
We were not afraid of it. Well, we knew the man we were working with who was interested in details. Like I said, we started with him years back before 31st. June 4th even broke out. And 31st, we had movements where we used to go around the country and replicate the movements, and also every weekend we had to go somewhere to go and educate the people, to let them know where we were going to. And he, was quite an interesting person. All cabinet members then knew. Now once in a while he would draw people's attention, gentlemen, you know where we're coming from, and you know our mantra, probity and accountability. You have to bear in mind that there will be a day of reckoning. So whatever you are doing, you have to be very careful. There were times when people even considered funny whenever you found the new people who had joined, as secretary, wearing expensive watches and things, would do attention, and they will remove it before stepping out to come to cabinet meeting. So we knew who he was, and he would not spare anybody, no matter how close you were with him, if you crossed the red line.
You know what you're going to feel. Right Honorable Doe Ajahu, former Speaker of Parliament, you have a very fine experience working with former President Rawlings. Do you think at any point in time he felt and he believed that what he wanted to do, he's been able to at least do so?
Yes, he's not expressing openly. The court, from discussions with him, what I've observed is that he did not want his legacy to be destroyed. Up to where he has reached, he still believes that there's more to be done. He believes that there's more to be done, irrespective of what is achieved so far. But he still believes that there's a lot that we need to do as Christians. Especially when you can't see injustice, you can't see people, suffering. You can't tolerate corruption. And he believes that one way to move this country forward is to fight corruption, is to walk the talk on probity and accountability. And anytime he see people departing from that path, he feels a sense of betrayal. He feels that, look, all these sacrifices that I did, putting my life at risk, why can't people see it in that light and continue in that spirit? And so, yes, he felt he's done a lot. He also felt that he sacrificed a lot. He felt that he has given his all.
You're welcome back. It's still our live coverage of the 4-day state funeral of His Excellency J.G. Rawlings. As I told you earlier on, there's also a Supreme Court hearing at the Supreme Court concerning the 2020 election petition. The court went on a short recess. We are told by our men on the ground that the court has returned, and so they will rule on the motion that the NDC has filed. They have filed 2 motions to take proceedings until the Supreme Court hears their case on a review of a ruling that was made by the Supreme Court sometime last week. They were unable to file their petitioner's statement today, even though the respondent, the first respondent and the second respondent did so. They have filed an opposition to the NDC's request for a review of that particular ruling that the Supreme Court made sometime last week. So the court has returned. GTV will pick that event live, and so you can continue watching the state funeral on GBC News whilst GTV brings you live pictures from the Supreme Court. This guy had a photo of the shot.
People thought that we could not extend electricity to the northern part.
This trust in the High Court has a similar provisions as follows. Where
He expanded electricity. He expanded, educational. Don't forget about the educational reforms program. When they when they build secondary schools, establish secondary schools across the length and breadth, so that they can put education at the doorsteps of the people. The Sahel program of electrification. Mention them. Look, I have no apology to anybody to say that he's one of the greatest leaders, presidents this country had ever seen. And he did it with integrity. And I just granted an interview, and I like quoting it, so let me repeat it again. I read a book. One senator called Alan Simpson of the U.S. was introducing President Ford at Harvard University, and the words that he used continue to guide me. And he said, if you have integrity, nothing else matters. If you don't have integrity, nothing else matters. John Rawlings had integrity, and nothing else matters.
Nothing else.
Notwithstanding how they may want to rewrite the history books, notwithstanding how people may want to disown him, betray him, abandon him, nothing else matters, either in life or in death.
Sir, you were very close to former President Rawlings before we promulgated the Constitution in 1993. What was his mood when we were moving from the PNDC into the NDC era? What was his mood? Was he comfortable moving into a democracy where you would have to go and ask permission for everything at all you want to do? What was his mood?
Let me just, add something to what my brother, the speaker, said. I read something from William Zatman, who was a professor in Johns Hopkins University, about the state of African countries, and that he did a research on 11 African countries and concluded that all those countries were failed states, including Ghana. When we talk about failed state, that's what we're talking about. Right? When virtually everything was not available, your station wasn't what it is today. It was in charters and was the only one. You couldn't even get simple things like kinky, gari, and other things to buy. You had to pay for everything. There were no materials for you to go and sew any suit that you wanted to. You had to go to the brewing well, sellers and all that. Then in 1979, early 1979, he reviewed and he said that, look, each and every one of those things will have political upheavals. There will be coups, counter-coups, and a lot of mess will break out. But in 1979, he came and revised what he had said, how the Rawlings reintroduced Ghana moving into legitimacy when he stepped in. So what my brother just said is something that people need to know. Ghana wasn't what it is today. Those were the days when I had the privilege of being the first Metropolitan Chief Executive for Accra for 10 years. And when we took over, I saw what Accra was. You look for a high-rise building, and you could only refer to Job 600 in this state at the time. It was under the Rawlings' watch that you can talk about Airport City. It didn't happen by accident. It was deliberate. It was deliberately fashioned out. When we moved in there, we had to clear farms and chop bars all the way to the belly of the airport. We had to do that. That was the time when you had only one double road in Accra. From, what about the Bechevilampi Circle to the beach. All the other double roads came under the Economic Recovery Program. As you see it today, the markets that were built, we demolished Makola Market. And at the time that it was demolished because of the Calabria. But when we went in there, we found out that Accra had a plan. And 20 other markets had to be built. And that the market in Makola had to be relocated to its present position. And we followed it. The city was swallowed by 758 huge mounds of refuse, bigger than this building that we sit in. And we had to clear it. And the interesting thing was that he was personally involved. He would come out because when we were building the market, clearing the refuse, without the city having the equipment that they should have. What they did was that we had to clear the place, but then they networked with the German government for support. They had to link with the German government for support, and we had to clear the mess. And you recall, people were in Accra, even cleaning the gutters that was around. Public toilet, 129 toilets were all in messy situations. We had to do something about it. And while we were working for the creation of a first-class modern waste management department, all this happened under his watch. So what you see today, to cut a long story short, I should have brought a book. I've read a book about Accra, the state of Accra.
The state of Accra.
And what Accra is today. You credit President Rawlings with that. And he encouraged that. At that time, we motivated the workers in the city engineering department to build the market. You have a Burushi market, Accra Newtown was dead, we had to revive it. 129 markets. And so the women, when we formed our parties, were voting for us happily because of what they had gained from the process. Accra is what it is today. And then we extended it. Accra City Extension Project then came on stream. We extended it to Secondary Takrady. I was had to go there and hold workshops for the people there to know how we did it. And the urban wolf. Those days where we went out there and closed 3 a.m. every day, paid the workers the same day, and in the night, he will come with PV of Ben to come and visit us, crack jokes to the workers, encourage them. So people love, his style. People love his style. So when he moves you from here to here, it wasn't because I was barbering him, but because he was seeing what we're doing and involved the people in, even when budgets were going to be published. Whenever Kwesi sent what they had to send for the academicians to discuss it, and then the politicians to discuss it, the woman wanted to know what the people feel out there. So he called me, Chenu, you have sat in this thing, you let me go, give your name and others to go and talk to the market leaders. At that time, there were no leaders. I formed them into associations based on commodities that they were selling. And we would go and discuss with them about what was going to come out of the budget and what the fallout to be. They should ask their questions, they needed their input. The input for the market was something which was taken seriously, added to whatever happened. So we can go on and on and on.
So that is it. Right Honorable Dua Jahu, what if you look at your style? You became a Speaker of Parliament and we saw the strength and your capacity and your drive. What did you take from former President Rawlings? That is this one, I think I have to learn this and I have to use it.
When I became Speaker, do you know how I was welcomed? An amount of 50,000 Ghana cedis was paid into my personal account. I knew and I didn't know, and it was meant for rent. I knew I wasn't entitled because I was in government at that time. And the letter that was written for the money mentioned 275 MPs. And I knew I wasn't entitled. So my man was not there. I was coming out from my last election campaign. So I was going to take money and I wanted to find off my balance from my bankers. I called them and they mentioned a certain amount, which I have in my account. I knew I couldn't have got that money in my account after an election. So I asked them to find something has been paid. And they told me that they have paid 50,000 into my account. I quickly signed a check and called the clerk and said, look, why? I wasn't entitled. Go and, this is the check. Go and pay in. Bring me my paying slip and give me a receipt. That is Jerry John. That is the thing. Because if you ever prosecuted people for those offenses, and as long as I was and I was prosecuting people, it guides you. You know, you see people fall from grace to grass in those days. I mean, how do you think that you would allow that money to stay in your account? And another thing, I try to live a very modest lifestyle. Because I keep on telling my children that at the end of the day, it is not the properties that you own, the material things that you have, but the values, the virtues, the principles that you live for. Like the great prophets of old, like the great politicians. You don't remember them for what they own at the point of leaving this earth. You remember them for the values, the principles, what they fought for, what they believed in. And so there's no way, you know that when you are young and a lot of things have impact on you when you are old. Yeah. Growing up and you see some of these things, December 31st, when December 31st was like, I was 24 years. And I started prosecuting around 20-something years, into early 30s. And you can't but see that, look, are you better than the people that you are prosecuting? And so it will have impact on you, it will have impact on you. And you see the sacrifice of a lot of people at that time around Jerry John Rawlings. Even when you even make your own money to put up your own house, you are even afraid. So a lot of people who work around you put up their buildings after we return to constitutional rule. I mean, look, you just working. My last office before I went to Parliament was at the State House here. You can work from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. But the following on secondment from the Attorney General, but the following day you are in the office. You are highly motivated. You want to work. no interference, except that the only time that there's any interference is either to commend you or to draw attention to something that maybe you did not get right. And so look, I think that nobody is perfect except maybe God. But you should try as much as possible to lead a life that generation to can emulate. And I think that his life,
This life,
yes,
of the man lying,
yes,
casket there,
yes.
rolling.
I mean, it was not. You get to him. I mean, you get to him, and he wasn't interested. He wasn't one that was, Look, when he lost the mother, there was a lady, a friend went to see him, and he met a lady there who was crying. No. After he died, and said who was going to buy his medication for him. Apparently, he had a list of people that every money that comes to him, he was paying either their school fees, people paying their medical bills, people in difficulties. He was. So any money that comes his way, he shared it.
He shared it with the people.
Yes. And at least after his death, I had an encounter with two of those people. So you might not be liked, or people might even think that you are a fool. But at the end of the day, it is worth emulating him.
Very good. So, Honorable Yiti Mensah, what message would you want to give to the young of today, looking at the life of former President Rawlings, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, at the point he was called Junior Jesus during your time, when you were the mayor of Accra?
Yeah.
The market queens were shouting Junior Jesus, JJ, Junior Jesus, JJ. And we were saying that so Yiti Mensah and Jama, you are a real organizer. You organized for him. What message would you give to young ones looking at your future and pointing them to?
Thank you very much. I have told my children every now and then, and the young men around me, and what we're seeing today, that it pays. That when it pays to bid your time. It pays to be patient. You don't have to rush. We've read it around, we've seen it. If you rush, you will crash. And you will never be able to recover. You don't have to rush. For you to see somebody who has built a number of houses, I will be in this, they call us fools. Those of us who work around, Papa J, you will just allow him to bully you. Never bullied anybody. That whatever you are doing, there will be a day of reckoning. And when the day comes, what you will be able to use to defend yourself will be the life that you led. And what is happening today, the young ones are too much in a hurry. Project did something which was fantastic that people need to learn about. All the people that he chose to work with were senior people who have seen it all before. The Nathan Kwao, the Harry Sawyers, the Munufie, the Justice Anans, and those of us, Kwesi Bote, and others, those of us who used to be working on the campus that he poached, were all people who were working, and then he brought us to come and work. The generals that he poached from the barracks, the retired police officers, all the things that we did, we had all these people around us. Were people who have seen it all before. So, in leadership, you need to bring strong, that we don't need just strong men, but men who are strong here. And they were around us, And we're always, advising us. In Nana Kwaku Sapons, mentioned them, the team that was there. So people sitting out there were attracted to the revolution and were attracted to the party. The party was forming all time and it was so big. So that is if you wanted me to give you the advice that I give the young people, you don't have to rush in life. When you rush in life, at every segment, every corner of life, wherever you find yourself, you will crash. And when you crash, you can never...
It will be difficult to recover. Yeah. Right Honorable Duaja, before you go, I would want you to advise the younger today. You have done your part. As a young man, you really stood and reflected the values: probity, accountability, integrity, social justice. You reflected them. What advice would you give to the young of today?
When I was in the university, I was the secretary of the JC Alego. The then opposition leader, the late Vitosu, came and gave a lecture. And in that lecture, he made a very important statement which had guided me up to today. He said that you must have political apprenticeship, or you must have apprenticeship in whatever you do. When you go through the mill, you will be a better leader. If you use a shortcut to get to the top, you will not survive. You know, before becoming speaker, I won 6 consecutive elections. I continue to work because, I joined the leadership of the House when Jasana was the speaker, and I joined the leadership in 1997. And so you go through the mill, you work with the leaders, you work with the speakers, those speakers before you, you work with those leaders that you met, you work with the presidents that you met, you learn from everybody. You see the mistakes in life. You see the successes of life. You see your own mistake. That you make along the way. You try to correct and never to repeat them. When you emerge, you don't make mistakes. You don't make mistakes. Yes. You don't make mistakes. In fact, it will be difficult for you to make mistakes. So the young to the young, I said that look, everybody should take his time. We need the youth in our developmental effort as a country. But if it helps if you take your time and you go through the mill, you will be successful. You have that apprenticeship. In wherever you find yourself, not just in politics, in public service, in the military, in whatever. When you take your time and go through the ranks, go through the mill, you get that experience. That will continue to guide you along the way.
You learn at the feet of the masters.
You learn at the feet of the masters.
You learn at the feet of the masters.
Thank you very much, Honorable Yiti Mensah, and Right Honorable.
Thank you very much.
Former Speaker of Parliament, Do Ajahu.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure having you in the studio.
That was my pleasure too.
I've put a book together. It's in print when we want to see from the state of Ghana from 81 to 91.
That's wonderful. We'll be glad to be part of that.
Okay.
Read the book as well.
It's been nice being with you.
Thank you. So we're still at the Kwame Nkrumah, we're still at the Accra International Conference Center, where we are observing the final funeral rites. The 3 of the burial of the former president of the Republic of Ghana, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings. I just finished talking to Honorable Yiti Mensah, a long-time commandant. He had where he stayed with Rawlings, worked for Rawlings. At the point he was saying he was his barber, and he said not only because he was his barber that he stayed longer with him, but because of trust and confidence he had in him. And then the Right Honorable Do Ajahu also coming through the studio. We're still observing the final funeral rites. They know that today is day 3 tomorrow, Wednesday, the 27th day of January, the year of our Lord, 2021, the mortal remains of former President Jerry John Rawlings will be laid to rest at the military cemetery here in Accra. Justus, let me rudely interrupt you and tell viewers, announce to viewers that we are now getting to where Chief Justice, the justices of the Supreme Court are ready to file past the mortal remains of the former president of the Republic of Ghana, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings. Yes, Honorable.
We have lost a great asset. We have lost something that it is going to be very difficult to feel. Honestly, when you ask me, because someone will say, but you are coming from the position. No. When I was a student in PRESEC, the Democratic Youth League of Ghana, in the early days of the revolution, some of us have some time will go past, what do you call it, this conference center around the Art Center. Yes, to go and listen to him. It is something we need. The state must do something in his honor. But let me say this, it is wrong for always praise people when they are old. That has been my principle. Whilst the person is alive, that is where we must eulogize him. It's only when he's gone. He doesn't hear. He doesn't see. Sometimes on radio, when some of his own enemies people are lambasted, I defend him. I say, no, you can do that. I recall one time when my own brother, Nilante, was after him. I defended John Rawlings right in the studio. Because he's a statesman.
He's a statesman. Honorable MP for Buem, Kofi Adams, former aide to former President Jerry John Rawlings. You know him. You felt him. It was very close to you. How did you feel when you heard of his passing out?
My brother, it was a devastating news. And I quickly moved to denial because like you introduced, former President Rawlings for me I perceived him to be larger than life. And so death was not something I envisaged or anticipated would happen around the time it happened. So I got shocked, but quickly moved into a state of denial. It's not true. He has gone to sleep. He would wake up. But as days roll, the usual conversation, the discussions we were supposed to have, for which I have spoken to him Tuesday before the Thursday he was sent to the hospital, was no more happening. So, is it true? Is it true? Until this morning, when I arrived here and stood there for some time, said things in my mind, no response from him. The usual way he would respond immediately I get to him, there was no response. So now, truly, it dawned on me that my boss is no more. He's truly gone to his maker.
Now let us quickly now look at the values that he stood for. Probity, accountability, integrity, social justice. These are the things. Are you sure that these quality tenants will live with us, and do we respect them? Or he is dead, so he has died with it?
I think his death and the love that has poured out should rather, in a way, excite us to keep to these values. I likened this situation to what happened as we read our Bible and we are told stories about. Even when Christ was alive, his teachings, many of us didn't accept it. If I say many of us, I mean those of us who were alive, we didn't accept it. It was after his crucifixion and resurrection.
Let me rudely interrupt you. Kofi Adams, that is Honorable Joshua Alabi, former Greater Accra Regional Minister during Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings' time.
Actually, was Greater Accra Minister and Northern Regional
Minister
at the point too.
Yeah, and now is a very solid person in the party that former President Jerry John Rawlings formed at the NDC. So, Kofi.
So it should excite us to want to keep up those values. The truth is that these are foundational values of the development of every country. You can't do without social justice. If you have to develop, this should be social justice. Issues of probity and accountability in every sphere of life, not only political or financial accountability. We must be accountable in everything that we do, even in media, in our work as journalists, in our work as, if I call it men of God. Somebody said we shouldn't call them men of God because we are all men of God. Even our religious work, even in our homes, how we relate with our spouses, how we relate with our children, how our children relate with us, our stewards and the rest. There should be probity, there should be accountability, there should be justice in that relationship. Look, if we do that, the political tension and the rest, all those things will become a thing of the past. We will compete for power because we have to compete for it. But the tension, the fact that if I see Honorable Titus Glover, because he is in the opposing side, we must be enemies. This one must never even advise another person. But if we believe in social justice, if we believe in probity and accountability, even if it is Titus that is president and not my party, I'll be willing to help him because his success will be the success of the country for the period he has the mandate. And so I think that it's an opportunity. President Rawlings' life, all through the ups and the downs and how we exited, should encourage us to pick up on those values and see how we can raise them to every sphere of our life and carry on.
And carry on. Titus Glover.
Yeah.
We are now looking at the life, the end of a man that really dominated the political scene of this country for 19 years, 11 years plus 8 years, democratic rule. And then he walked off after 8 years, handed over, and then the democracy is gone. And we've seen, we used to describe Ghana's political history as checkered. But for the past 30 years, we are seeing a stable democracy, Fourth Republican Constitution, Fourth Republic, very stable. How would we want to see this beautiful country of ours after the passing of Flight Lieutenant Rawlings?
Thank you very much. The 31st December revolution, we were told, was the last of our revolution. So for 11 years that he walked us through that transition before he ushered us into democratic rule, he demonstrated his commitment that this is the path the world and the people of this country would ask to go. Therefore, he gave his all to make sure we go by these tenets of this constitution. Let me say now, and let me repeat myself, the late former president was an institution. He was an institution. Therefore, we need to guide this democracy so jealously in such a way that we know to the past. From 1992 up to year 2001, he lived to see what he built. And he made sure that whatever it takes for us to make sure we remain in constitutional rule, we will allow him to go. As for give and take as political opponents, we are not enemies. We all have divergent views. We all want to come to Accra from Tema. Kofi can decide to go to the motorway. I can go to the coast. But we are right here in Accra. It is only management typology, the style, that will change. So as long as we want to practice multi-partism, that is what we need to do. What we are doing that will destroy the beauty of this country, we should be guided about it. We need to make sure we hold what our predecessors, our forebears, including the former president, had for us, we should hold it. I would have loved that it's a whole school that was set up in his honor. A whole institution that was set up in his honor. When he was alive, and they wanted to name the UDS after him. He said, no, this is a man who doesn't want materialism. They pleaded with him, he said, no, but I think now is the hour to remind generations to come that this was a man, when he had a donation of 50,000 cedis, he could have pocketed it. He could have gone to do some business with it. He could have used to pay the fees of his ward, his children, and all that. He said, no. He wanted to build the human capital of the young ones in this country. And this is what he did. So such a person, we need to celebrate him. So for your question, what I can say is that we have come to live for democracy. And that is what he has bequeathed on us. We must all, as Ghanaians, as political parties, come together to make sure we jealously guide this democracy that he has bequeathed to us.
Honorable Kofi Adams, I know that the values that he stood for, it's all for us to now experience. And whatever foundations he's laid, it's for all of us now to guide. But then you look at it, he was a man of the people. The people loved him.
That is a different bit with we in opposition.
The people loved him. And had it not been COVID, by this time this place would have been besieged. There would have been stampeding here. But because of COVID, this is what we say. So does it tell you, I want to find out from you, you should know that it is not what we want, but it can come. And when it comes, this is it. How should we direct our youth? The thieving people that love this man and love the parties we represent. Both parties, the NPP and the NDC, how do we talk to our teaming supporters to let them understand that it is politics we're doing, but not distraction? And they, as supporters as well, should look that if their leaders are doing politics and it's not distraction, how do we speak to them to let them understand this is the way forward for our
We all have a role, and you are speaking to me as a practicing politician and a partisan one for that matter. But like you asked and said, we have a responsibility to make sure that our country develop out of fair, just atmosphere based on very clear values and principles that we have been talking about. One thing President Rawlings kept telling me, say, look, when you are convinced about something, push it as hard as you can. Don't be insulting, don't be insolent, but push it as far as you can, because that is what God has put in you. That every human being has something that God puts in him or her for the life he has given you. There is something he puts in you every day when you wake up. You feel convinced about it, push it. You will get others who may buy into it, because God doesn't give you something and won't get people to come and buy. So if it is true that it is God himself that is pushing, he will bring you people that will buy into it, and then you will be able to push it through. But one thing that must always inform your actions. Your actions should be based on the cardinal truth. That at the time you are acting, it is the truth. Not because I sat there and thought that, no, Honorable Titus is my opponent, so let me plan something to destroy him. Then we go and sit down and plan, and then we go and carry it, and it fits very well. We get all the things that someone who is not him would never know that this is not true. No, he doesn't think that that should inform our ways of doing. If we have to take on Honorable Titus, it should be based on truth. And that is how easy it was working for him and being his spokesperson for such a long time. Because all he wants is that just speak the truth. Look, if you saw him, if it was your kegari he was eating, you don't need to go and polish it and say he ate some fried rice and fish and with this and that. If it is your kegari without any fish and anything, say as it is. Just say it. Even if it makes him unhappy, he knows that you have spoken the truth. That was how easy it was working for him. He cared about everybody. Look, if he ever hears, like you are working with him, and then he hears that you have disrespected somebody, not even within the office, that you have this, that is the end of you. You will have, it will take you a long time. He has to find a way. If you get you back to go and apologize to that person, you have to. Or if he has to get somebody for you to go with that person to go and apologize before him, because otherwise he feels like it is a disrespect to him that you, close to me, can do this to somebody. It means I am irresponsible. And that is why sometimes when people hear him take on some person, then they ask, but now, oh no, why are you not then? His belief is that people cannot be working with you and for you and be behaving that way, and you think that you are not aware, you cannot do anything about it. It may be true that appointees or political decisions may be on their own, but you have appointed them. So if they are going in a certain way that everybody is complaining, so are you not hearing? So truly speaking, we all at various levels, we are leaders. You can pick it up from there. In the media, you have people who look up to you, instill something on them. In politics, those of us who are in politics at various levels, we all have people who are following us. At the constituency level, I am a voice. He is a voice. At the regional level, we have some who are voices. At the national level, we have some. At all the various things, let's all take advantage of that influence and respect we have to change the situation. And it will be good for all of us.
Honorable Tatas, before you go, the last question I would want you to tell me, as a politician, this was someone who came as a soldier, and he jumped into the political terrain, became a politician, and he was one beautiful politician. You're a beautiful politician when people are with you, and you pull the crowd. You must vote. He has the courage now, and he has the ability to hold people and get people working. Now has come as a political leader, as a politician. What would you say that you would want to take from him and run with?
And there's a saying that it's said about late Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, that he never dies. Because of the kind of things that Dr. Nkrumah came to do for this country. I want to borrow those words. He said that Jerry Rawlings never dies.
Never dies.
He's still in the hearts. The former president is still in our hearts. Whatever we are doing, we should remind ourselves. There was once a time, the leader of this country who demonstrated his life for humanity. He stood for the truth. He stood for transparency. He stood for total justice. And he also stood for accountability. Sometimes it is not the words that we just say, but the practicability of these words, how we put it into action, that will determine the words that has lived with us. We shouldn't allow these words to just go just like that. I was sitting when you asked the same similar question to my former speaker and my senior uncle, Honorable Utimesa. What do we think the youths are going to learn from the former president? It's about patience and humility. The tendency to learn, to see yourself when you are given an opportunity, is not to come and throw your weight around. It's service to the country. He offered himself to serve this country. Today is gone. And And I believe that, and I still, if I have the opportunity, I'll tell the president, let us institutionalize the words of the president. If you can even open an institution, they should take Kofi and the family. They should take it up. His office should take it up and continue. They shouldn't leave the office like that. They must continue and carry out his good works. And we believe that sometimes when we are called upon, we're ever ready to serve. In every capacity that he invites us, because Rawlings never dies. He was an asset. He was an institution that God bless it. He may have his shortcomings. But as a human, we all fallible. Once in a while we make mistakes. But so long as there's genuineness in that mistake, he gives all. Let us compare his goodness with all the negatives that's kind about him. But for me, with my few years that I've been with General Rawlings, we have missed an asset in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kofi Adams, MP for Brum, and former MP for Tema East,
and Deputy Minister of Transport.
And Deputy Minister of Transport, Titus
Daniel
Titus Glover. You always wanted to be the same. That's wonderful having the two of you.
Those who have power.
That's right. Final funeral rites of the former President of the Republic of Ghana, the first of the Fourth Republic, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings. The day started with the filing past of the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and wife, Rebecca Akufo-Addo. Then we saw the filing past of the Vice President, Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia, and the wife Samira Bawumia. Then we saw former President John Ajukum Kufuor, former President John Dramani Mahama and wife Lordina Mahama. And then we saw the Chief of Staff file passed. And after the Chief of Staff, we have seen Justices of the Supreme Court also have taken their turn to pay their last respect to the former President of the Republic of Ghana. We saw Joshua Alabi. We've also seen former Speakers of Parliament. We saw the former Speaker, Right Honorable Joe Ajahu, current Speaker, Alvan Tumanu Babin, and members of Parliament coming to file past. We saw the former Agric Minister and now still named Agric Minister designate, Dr. Asaya Kutu. And then we've also seen Matthew Koku Prempeh, the former Education Minister and now Energy Minister designate, also filing part at the Accra International Conference Center. We're still here at the International Conference Center. Still here at the International Conference Center, and we are looking, we're watching the funeral rites of Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings. Still at the Accra International Conference Center, where we're observing the three of the funeral of former President Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, born in 1947, died 2020 at age 73. Captain Akako, it's been a smooth day so far. Filing past the mortal remains have been so smooth. We're always at a point in time thinking that every day will bring it, and then we saw day 1, we've seen day 2, we've seen day 3, and it looks as if the planning committee had been able to control the crowd, and they have been left with the COVID protocol. The biggest crowd that had come here was the 275 members of parliament with a speaker that came in, and within a space of time they have cleared them, and the place is still calm and everything is smooth. How do you think that this committee had been able to achieve this results?
Thank you very much, Gabby. It's as a result of hard work, planning, and ready to actually take up a task and make sure you deliver to the end. This wouldn't have been possible if the planning committee had not taken into consideration that all these things could happen. Probably there will be people rushing in to cause chaotic incidents and all those things. But as yesterday I said, I would always say that kudos to the planning committee for having been meticulous about planning this whole event. Bringing in all these things, you need a huge number of people to manage and usher them all in. But because Ghanaians, at least I am believing that they are realizing that COVID is not real. COVID is with us, and we need to take precaution. So they factored in all this possible home, and at least watch from their televisions and understand, and also pay their last respect to our former president and our former commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces.
Now, we have seen up to this time what we are expecting now, the members of the diplomatic corps, and these are foreign officers that are staying with us and working with us, and therefore they are part of Ghana, that they are now the next group of people that we would have to see coming to pay their last respect. And then after the diplomatic call, the next organized situation would be organized groups. And these groups would have to come in. We have the Bar Association, we have the Ghana Medical Association. All these are people, associations are people that have worked with the former president. And they would want to come to at least recognize that, look, we know you meant well, and you lived with us, and that is where we are getting to. So after organized groups, then we'll be moving to the traditional customary rights. And this, you know, that as the Ghana's tradition depicts. We first the people, we first a country, and we have tradition, and we have customs, and we will have to make sure that it is left. And the rest of the world that will be watching will be seeing pictures of how, as an organized group and organized people, would live. And it has not been very easy watching Nana Kunodo Rawlings. Look at the way he's holding her hands, folding her hands, and it has not been easy. You can just imagine that it is not easy.
No, it hasn't been easy.
Yeah.
It's not
Sometimes you sit down and you think that, for example, soldiers cry? But when it gets to a time that you lose a loved one, and then you know you are not going to see again. Yes.
Especially when you remember the moments you shared together, the emotional moments, the romantic moments, the moments you had to struggle together and bring up the family to the level where they have gotten to now. When you think about all those things, you realize that it's so emotional, and I really sympathize with her. It's my prayer that God continue to strengthen her in this moment, because it's not easy. It's not easy at all.
The catafalque group today, they're still on.
Yes.
Now a new set of people had come to change them, and that we will see. Yes. Captain.
Gabi.
The soldiers would always want to make sure that it is done and done.
Of course, of course.
And this is one thing that as a people and as a country, we should try to learn. Let us live and demonstrate everything we do with quality, decency, respect, and perfection. And if that's what we can do, then we can now see that we would get the results we want.
It is
as a soldier.
Yes.
As a soldier. Former soldier. Now the late.
As an officer.
As an officer.
Yes, as an officer.
As an officer.
Yes.
As an officer. What is motivating? What is motivating you to feel proud that you are a commissioned officer?
Motivation is, it's all there. The values he upheld when he was living. He stood for probity, accountability, integrity. And integrity, in the military, we don't joke with it. We don't joke with it. And we attach seriousness to whatever we do. That is why even during rehearsals, you see we paint the picture as if it is the real thing we do. And I think as Ghanaians, if we should attach seriousness to whatever we do, I am very sure we will definitely get results in whatever we are doing. And I think it is those values that the late former president emulated, and some of us saw, and it made us have the courage, the zeal to join the military and become officers of the Ghana Armed Forces.
How do you, sometimes we look around us and we see all shades of opinion, all shades of beliefs and values, and then how we live, how we would want to let it be translated into actual development and actual trial. These are members of the diplomatic corps. So the members of the diplomatic corps have started coming in, and they are now going to pay the last respect to the former president of the Republic of Ghana, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings.
So far so good. The rate and level at which we are going. And I am hopeful that as the organized groups also come in, we will see the way the security at the various points usher them in that orderly manner. And so far, I might say kudos to the security team as well for having been so professional with the way they carry themselves about in the discharge of their duties.
And this is a very big plus to the country Ghana. We had a funeral on our hands, and we have really demonstrated the capacity to be very professional, very civil with it, and we have done very well with it. We continue doing very well with it in COVID times. This is an indicator COVID has come to stay with us, and we have all agreed that we have COVID, and life can't stop. And so let's just live with the COVID protocols and project our life and project development and project the country and make sure that it is smooth as usual.
Sure.
To file past the mortal remains of the former president.
I'm sure these are people who have actually, some of them have really worked with the former president. They all have memories of what they have shared or their interactions with the former president. As we had in the studio, as people spoke about him, his values he stood for, and I think we should all have values so that at the end of the day, if we are no more, we should have a legacy to leave behind for our families.
Captain, that is the perfect conclusion.
Yes.
The question we should be asking ourselves: if I am in casket now, what would people say? So if you can't ask yourself the question, and you can't put yourself in that particular position, and you can't even produce the answers that people will be saying, giving about you, then it means that you are not about to, you are not ready to face life. Because it is not what you think you are, how the people think who you are.
Yes, it is how the people see you. Now we see our former president lying. He can't wake up to say what he thinks he is, but it is how people visiting, people coming to pay their last respect, it is how they see him. That is what is going to be the news of the day. That is what they will spread when they go out to speak about our former president. So as we still see our diplomats filing past the mortal remains of our former president, permit me to quickly run our U.S. and listeners through the procession route. That is, after the funeral service, the square, the procession route. The route will take this course from the Independence Square to the Osu Castle Road. Then we move to the Ridge Roundabout, to the Kojo Thompson Road, that is within Adabraka, circle, move to the Nima Police Station, the Gifford Road, that is the 37 Road, and we go to Bema Camp. Then from Bema Camp, we move on the Mahama Road, and then to the military cemetery. That's going to be the procession route for tomorrow. So as our viewers are home watching, and those who live by, they think they can also pay their last respect by just coming by to the roadside to wave and also pay their last respect to our former president. I will also take the opportunity to inform the public once again that COVID is real. COVID has come to stay with us. So we should all try as much as possible to mask up, we should wear our masks and observe the protocols that are laid in place by way of COVID.
So definitely that will be maybe the challenge that we would have to face from that for the funeral. That will be tomorrow. That is when we get because you can't predict how the people will move out and how they would. And if we are not very careful, that is when maybe we cannot be in position to control the social distancing. But I know that since our brothers and sisters of the military will be there, you know, it's sometimes when you see an authority, you're just supposed to behave. It's just like children in a classroom. When the teacher is out of the classroom, you can hear all sorts of noise. But immediately the teacher walks into the classroom, you can see order. Right. And so far as society is aware that the men and women in uniform are our own brothers. They live with us. When they take off the uniform, they are just like us. You can't even see, you can't recognize him. You can't say he's a soldier or he's a policeman. Literally he takes off and he's in a civilian, he's in a mufti, he's like us. But then they have joined to do it, and that is what it is their responsibility to drive and direct.
But Gabi, I would believe, I'm very sure that Ghanaians are getting to know the reality that COVID is with us now. And I'm definitely sure that tomorrow, as they come out in their numbers, they will definitely wear their masks and observe the protocols. I believe Ghanaians are very obedient. I believe Ghanaians are very obedient, and they wouldn't want to wait until security or enforcement agencies come out to enforce the laws that they should wear their mask before they wear. I am sure Ghanaians are moving from that level of not understanding what the reality is to understanding what the reality is. Yes. Respect to our former president.
Okay, the funeral service tomorrow.
Yes.
All right, all right. So how's the water region?
Water region is doing well.
It's doing very well.
Very well.
That is that. At the Accra International Conference Center, where we're observing the day 3 of the funeral of former President Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings. With me in the studio for a very short discussion is the Volta Regional Minister, Honorable Archibald, Dr. Archibald Letcher. Dr. Letcher, you're welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
This time around, we can't do anything without looking and respecting the COVID protocol. How are the people of the Volta region respecting the COVID protocols? Regional Minister?
Thank you very much. There's an upsurge of cases in the region as well. And the Regional Public Health Management Committee has met. And we've advised that we should up our game in terms of the